Hello everyone, this is Rabbi Shmuel Kopel once again. As you may see in my glasses, it's a bit of a rainy day today here in the Holy Land of Israel, and I don't have my glasses wipes with me, so I guess I have to wait till they dry on their own, and you get to see them. I don't know what that means, but hopefully you enjoy. Today I want to discuss a very important question. Can spirituality be intellectual? Now, this is a very important question, and if you feel you have an answer, please feel free to comment below. I would suggest that you listen to the rest of this video because there's a lot of details in this question that I'm going to cover, and even if you think you know what I'm going to say, you may not actually know what I'm going to say. So please listen to the end. There's a lot of important points here, and I want to hear your comments on all of these points. So please listen to the end. If you did not have a chance yet to subscribe, I want to ask you to hit the subscribe button below as well as the bell next to it that will allow you to be notified every time I upload a new video. Besides for the fact that it allows you to keep in touch with the videos and be notified when I upload a new video, it is also very important to me because when I see that more people are interested, I'm more interested in making more videos. If people are not listening, they don't really care what I have to say, then I'm like, well, why should I do this? So you are partially, how should I say it? You deserve the credit. All those of you that already subscribed, you deserve the credit for these actual videos coming out. And if you are going to subscribe, you definitely have credit for the, deserve credit for the future videos that are coming out. Without further ado, I want to focus on this concept. I meet many people from all over the world, and I speak to them about spirituality, and I generally like dividing all of spirituality into two categories. There is emotional spirituality and intellectual spirituality. I would say most people involved in spirituality is an emotional spirituality. Emotional spirituality is pretty obvious. I mean, if you're going to meditate and develop this deep feeling within inside of yourself, and your spirituality is about the sense of connection. You want to feel connected to a higher being. That's obviously some level of an emotion. It's not something you understand, but it's something you experience. Actually, I misused the term. I'm sorry, I take it back. It's intellectual spirituality versus experiential spirituality. Experiential spirituality is you want to experience something. Experiential spirituality is extremely important to a human being and to their emotional well-being. People have a need to feel some sense of connectivity to something bigger. And when I say a human need, I believe that it is a human need even for those that don't believe that spirituality is real. There's a human need for spirituality, and the way I see the human need of spirituality is connecting something bigger than yourself is essentially something spiritual. It's not something physical. If you want to eat food, that's physical because it's helping you grow your body. You want to make money so you can buy clothing which will keep you warm in the winter, keep you looking respectable. That is for yourself. You want to even if you involved in a sexual or you know, some type of relationship in a sexual form, there's a bodily urge. Your body will actually drive you towards sexuality, and therefore you obviously it's a physical need. It has to do with your physical body's functioning. The second you want something that doesn't necessarily have to do with your personal physical body's functioning, it is, to me, it's spiritual. That's how I define spiritual. Spirituality is when you are trying to connect to something that you yourself have no idea why you want it, or why you want to connect it, why you want to invest in it. That is spirituality. So, for example, if you are helping a homeless person, that to me is spiritual. Whether you're a theist or an atheist, that is spiritual from my perspective. At least you may disagree with me, that's fine. But from my perspective, that is spiritual. It's spiritual to do something that you don't see yourself gaining. Even if you say that when I give the homeless person food and I see their smile and their happiness, it gives me joy as well. It's still a spiritual concept because you cannot see how you personally gain in a bodily way, in a physical way. You don't see how you're going to gain. It's more emotional, which is spiritual, experiential spirituality. Most atheists that I know are involved in something beyond themselves, something that they cannot point a finger at and say, this is how my physical body gains. This is how it gives me life. This is how it gives me friendship, or whatever it is that they actually need. It's some type of a feeling, an experience of connectivity to something beyond. That's the way I define spirituality in general, is anytime you're connecting to something beyond the physical, that is spiritual. Or beyond your own physical gain. Okay? Now, generally, most people are involved in spirituality from an experiential point of view. They want to get a particular experience. If it's an atheist, they want to get maybe a good feeling of making somebody happy. They might want to feel like they're saving the planet. There's somewhat of an emotional, experiential gain that they have, even though it's not physical. That's experiential spirituality. The question is there a intellectual side of spirituality? Is there some ideas that you can kind of understand why you're trying to connect to these realities, what you're trying to connect to, how to satisfy yourself to the utmost? For example, with experiential spirituality, and let's deal with the, how should I say it, the more abstract spirituality, not the practical spirituality like I mentioned earlier, but an abstract spirituality. Let's say, for example, you meditate and you have this beautiful experience. Then you can go and help the homeless and have a beautiful experience. And then you have to kind of weigh the two. Which experience do I prefer more, right? One or the other. Now, you might be able to do both, but if you can't do both, then you have to choose between one and the other. And it's very, very difficult when you're dealing with experiential spirituality. Yes, one gives me more pleasure, one gives me less pleasure, but which one is more important, which one's less important, which one's more meaningful, which one is less meaningful? This is very, very difficult to properly understand. So then we go again to intellectual spirituality. Intellectual spirituality would be more about, well, is there a God or isn't there a God? If there's a God, creator, what does that mean to me? Right? Am I responsible to do something? If there's a God. Am I not? Does he want something from me? Does he not want something from me? What's better in his viewpoint? What's not better in his viewpoint? If a person's an atheist, what's the basis of morality? Is there a basis for morality? How do you determine what's more moral and less moral? These are all what I would consider intellectual spirituality. Intellectual spirituality is determining the various aspects of spirituality. And just like in the physical world, say for example in science, if you want to learn, you want to know which car, say for example, is better than the other. So you have two ways of doing that. You can get into one car, drive it, and see, hey, how comfortable does this feel? You get into the other car and you drive it and feel how comfortable it is. And you can choose that way which car is better. But very often, that's not necessarily the case. One car may feel a little worse, but last a lot longer, or vice versa. In order to understand this, you really have to get to the depth of how a car is made, what are the materials that the car is made out of, etc. You always have to try to understand the backbone to that. Now, with intellectual spirituality, there's two general values in intellectual spirituality. There's two things that you really gain. The first thing that you gain is, as I explained with the car, the more you properly understand spirituality, the more you understand why you want spirituality, the better you can determine which experiences are better for you and which ones are worse or not as good for you. And by making an informed decision on what spirituality you choose to follow, what experiences you choose to engage in, those experiences are going to be much better. Besides for the fact, it will actually make you feel you're doing something legitimate versus something that's doubtful. Many people that engage in experiential spirituality very often doubt, well, is this just a fantasy? Is there any truth to that at all? Right? Whereas when you deal with intellectual spirituality, you are more informed and better informed on what experiences you want to have. And when you actually have those experiences, there's a sense of meaning and legitimacy to it, and not just your fantasy. I deal with a lot of people that the first thing they think is that spirituality is, it's a guessing game. You play around. The problem is that it doesn't properly nurture that need, that deep inner need of spirituality needs to know that it's doing it right. So for example, let's take a religion. If you are following a religion and deep down you're not sure whether or not it is a legitimate claim, that wonder itself will ruin, to some extent, not completely, but will to some extent ruin your spiritual experience. Because deep inside you're like, well, is this valuable or is this not valuable? So for example, if you go and watch a movie, it may bring up in you a lot of emotions and the storyline and everything, but in the back of your head you know that it's fiction. This is one of the reasons why reality TV is so popular, because when you're watching reality TV and you have those emotions and you have those drama that's going on there, the fact that you know that there's truth behind it actually gives you a better experience than if you know that it's fiction, or even if you're not sure if it's fiction. And this is something that only intellectual spirituality could properly give you, is the ability to legitimize whatever experiential spirituality you're engaged in. Right, and it's extremely important, from my opinion. If it's not, please put it in the comments. I'm happy to hear it. In my opinion, it's definitely extremely important and valuable to have that sense of legitimacy of your own spirituality. And there is. A lot of people say, well, there's no way to prove that there's God. There is a God. I hate to say it, I disagree with that. There are a lot of ways of approaching a lot of these ideas, including, is there a creator? How do we know there's a creator? How do we interact with the creator? there are many ways of determining these things in a very intellectual and rational way. And once you do, your connection and your experiences will be that much better because you have that sense of legitimacy, right? If you noticed, I'm not sure when you're watching this particular video, but if you notice my Facebook recently, my Facebook group just changed to Intellectual Spirituality. My YouTube channel now is called Intellectual Spirituality. And that's essentially what I want to deal with, is that idea of understanding your spiritual needs, engaging in that understanding, and allowing that to give you a better spiritual experience as well. So experiential spirituality is very important, and it has its place. And it's important for you as an individual to be able to use intellectual spirituality to help enhance your experiential spirituality. I just want to bring out a point that is also very important. Some people look at experiential spirituality and intellectual spirituality as two completely different things. So when you're dealing with intellect, you have no spiritual experience. I would disagree with that as well. If you get heavily engaged in a spiritual discussion, an ideological discussion, not an argument or not I believe this and you believe that, the whys. Why do you believe this? Why do you believe that? How does this make you feel? How do you see a God telling you to worship him? Why? Why should you worship a God? Right? What's the reason? Maybe God doesn't want you to worship him. Maybe he created you to watch and then have fun. It's a good question. I mean, you want to answer that also? Please, in the comments, answer that question. It's a good question for a different video. But yeah, perhaps he wants to watch us have fun. So maybe by us having fun, that's the best thing for us to do for God. Who said worshiping him and squeezing ourselves and doing all sorts of painful acts? Who says that that's what he wants? Maybe that's doing exactly what he doesn't want. How do you know? So these are intellectual ideas that you can discuss with people. And when you do, I think you will find that in itself is a very powerful spiritual experience. So that intellectual engagement in itself is a very powerful spiritual experience that I think you may enjoy even more than some of the other experiential spiritual rituals and exercises, etc. So that's what I want you to consider, and that's also why this particular YouTube and my Facebook group, etc., that's what I want to do. I want to engage in intellectual spirituality where people discuss the ideas, get down to the bottom of the whys and the whats and the hows versus I feel this, you feel that, I believe this, you believe that. This is how I do a yoga and then I feel connected, or this is how I do a meditation and I feel connected. That's not what I want in my circle, at least. I'm looking for people who are willing to engage, want to engage and willing to engage, hopefully respectfully with each other in their pursuit of intellectual spirituality. So please comment in the link below. Happy to see it. If you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe right away, and let's get going.